Good morning. We will call the May 2nd, 2023 City Council meeting to order. We have Councilman Richard Donnell will lead us in the invocation and pledge. If you would please stand.
Will you please bow? The gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to be present another time to do the business of the city. We ask that thou will be with us, that thou will inform us so that we can make good decisions on behalf of all the people of the city of Jackson. We thank you for this audience that has gathered with us today. We ask that thou will bless them, be with them, and just be with us all. These are the blessings we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 3 is roll call. Marquise, you see that momentarily all council members are present. Approval of the minutes for the April 4th, 2023 council meeting. Those minutes were emailed out. There are no additions or corrections to the minutes. They will stand approved as read. We have a couple of presentations this morning. Is our Trash for Cash presentation. We have representatives of the Salvation Army. Y'all will come up. All right. So our City of Jackson's Trash for Cash program is a fundraising opportunity for organizations through Keep Jackson Beautiful and our Mayor's Youth Council to provide opportunities for groups to raise money for nonprofit organizations. And so we had a group that did some cleanup for on behalf of the Salvation Army, and so it's my honor to present a check of $200 to Salvation Army. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and next up, we have a proclamation for National Women's Health Week. Dr. Taylor. And the proclamation reads, whereas National Women's Health Week celebrates the extraordinary progress in women's health and recognizes that more needs to be done to safeguard the health of women for generations to come. Whereas the National Women's Health Week begins on Mother's Day each year and focuses on reminding women to carve out some me time they need to eat healthy, practice self-care, and make those yearly doctor appointments, which are so important not to forget. Whereas National Women's Health Week celebrates the efforts of national and local community organizations such as the Step Ahead West Tennessee, its volunteers, and other services to improve awareness to key women's health issues, including safe baby spacing and safe and effective contraceptives. And whereas women's health remains a priority for families, communities, and government, and our commitment to keeping women healthy is stronger than ever. Whereas the Step Ahead West Tennessee is dedicated to improving women's health every week, every month, all throughout the year. Now, therefore, I, Scott Conger, Mayor of the City of Jackson, and A.J. Massey, Mayor of Madison County, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim the week of May 14th through the 20th, 2023 is National Women's Health Week. This is Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, Commissioner Black and I were talking about how there's so many recognitions and so many awareness months and weeks and days now. This month is also, May is also Teen Pregnancy Prevention Month, but we do that every day. And so this month we wanted to focus on women's health, and National Women's Health Week does start on Mother's Day. And on Mother's Day, we know that everybody is scrambling around to get the best present for their mom, their sister, their aunts, their nieces, their daughters, their granddaughters. You do all that on Mother's Day. But don't forget, it's more than that. You want to make sure, ensure that their health is intact. We want women to live as long as they possibly can, and ensuring that they get those checkups, ensuring when they have an issue that they don't put it off. Sometimes as women, we put off our issues because we're busy taking care of everybody else. So remind women that they're important too, and remind them, encourage them to go and get checked out so that they will remain healthy for a long and healthy life. Thank you. I got to go vote.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
before we go forward with the business, I have a card that I'd like to read for the record.
Okay.
This is a card that comes from Miss Melody Hawkins. She was established as the National Teacher of the Year, and Councilmember Skinner presented her with the key to the city. And she has sent us this card, and I'd like to read it for the record. To Mayor Conger, Councilwoman Tara Skinner, council members in the city of Jackson, Tennessee, thank you so much for presenting me with the key to the city of Jackson, my beautiful hometown. This is truly a memorable honor, and I will never forget. There's no place like home. If I may ever be of service to you and this grand city in any way, please never hesitate to ask. May God continue to bless all of you with love, Melody M. Hawkins. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Move on to first readings. Item 1 is consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located at the southwest corner of West Forest Avenue and Lambert Boulevard from RG2 General Residential District to B1 Medical and Related Services District comprising of 1.02 acres, more or less.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning, sir.
You have the materials pertinent to this rezoning request in your packet. The Planning Commission did review this and has recommended approval of it to you. The site is currently partially zoned B1, probably about half of it's zoned B1 now, and they're just wanting to consolidate the whole site under B1 to accomplish the hotel construction that they're planning on doing.
All right, any questions from council? All right, this is an item on first reading, so I will open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to can be recognized at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Is it-
I think she
Oh.
raised her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Please, come up. Come up and have a seat and give us your name and, for the record. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, my name is Miss Verlene Cole, and I live at the corner of West Forest and Lambert Boulevard. Well, I got this in the mail.
Okay, would you like to speak in favor of or in opposition to the rezoning of the property?
Well, that's where I live. I just want to know what you all want to do.
It's your house.
This is the vacant property on where the Jackson Clinic used to be at, is the corner that we're referring to rezone the property, not your corner that you live on.
Not that corner?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so why did I receive this?
Because you're adjacent to the property that's being rezoned, to notify the neighbors that we're rezoning the property and there's a public opportunity for public hearing,
You live close.
because you live close to the property.
Okay,
We notify all property owners within 500 feet of any rezoning, so that's why you got a notice.
okay,
But it doesn't affect your property.
okay. Okay, thank you.
You have a good day.
We're not gonna rezone your property.
I'm glad to meet you, and I'm glad you showed up.
May I say that
Mayor needs to help.
you know, we thank you for coming up and just to see exactly what's going on. That's what
Yes.
citizen
Yeah.
democracy is about.
Yes,
So
yes.
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
That's right.
Might have to take this one you Who is that district?
All right.
Whose district is it?
That was, she would be moving in with Councilman Pretty, if that was the case. It's his district. That's right. All right, any other hands, because I don't miss, or if not, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
I so move.
Have a motion from Councilman Turner. Is that a second, Councilman Donnell?
Yes.
I have a second. Any further discussion from council? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
All right, item 2 is consideration of an ordinance to de-annex an area referred to as Jack Hornsby, submitted by Jack Hornsby, comprising of 14.09 acres more or less, located at 220 block of John Williams Road.
And again, you have the materials pertinent to this de-annexation request. As we've said before, de-annexation doesn't take place very often. In some cases, though, it's appropriate. And in this case with Mr. Hornsby, you processed his home place that he lives earlier, and he had an additional 14 acres that were adjacent to his home that he would like to also remove. And again, the reasons for his request are he lives at the end of a road, has no utilities or any services on that, so and the rest of the residents on the south side are already in the county, so he felt it was more appropriate to be in the county. So we are recommending approval of that to you.
Also move.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All right, this is an item on first reading, so we'll open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to can be recognized at this time. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion from council? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thanks, Stan.
Thank you, sir.
All right, item 3, changes to Title 8, Chapter 2, beer. Have Mrs. Luna come up and give us that information.
Morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning.
We had 3 goals when the Code Committee met concerning the beer ordinance. The first, there were some problems brought to us by the Beer Board that they were having. We wanted to address those. The second thing, we wanted to look at other cities to see if they had some good ideas that we could incorporate. And the third thing, we had some areas of state law that we need to get into compliance with. I think you probably have your sheets up there, but the first change is to 8206. This is the change in the definition of beer. We have currently the definition of beer at 5% weight, and the state's definition is 8. Second one is 82071. Since businesses apply for permits to sell beer, we're asking for the word to be changed from persons to businesses. Also, the word distribute was added several places in here. Now, the word distribute, here's what we felt was important about that. If a business distributes beer without selling it, that's also illegal, so that word needed to be added. In 82072G, we're asking you to omit the gambling machines. Those are covered in other sections of the code. In 82072M, this makes the applicant for the beer permit responsible if anything happens at his property. He has an overall responsibility for that business with regard to the beer code. In 82072N, this is a new section we're asking you to add. All employees of businesses who sell beer must either have a permit from the ABC or they must have a training approved by the Beer Board.
Now repeat
Of course,
that.
this does not, just go ahead.
Would you
Sorry.
repeat that, please?
Yes. This is a new section. All businesses that sell beer, their employees must either be permitted by the ABC or have training as approved by the Beer Board.
And the training would come from what source?
There are several sources that we found. There are some online that the Beer Board could approve. One of the next steps is that the Beer Board has got to approve the types of training that at their next meeting. If you guys approve this, then they could either go online and do that training, or Ms. Hilda Little already provides that. So that is also an option, a local option.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And one more thing about that, this does not apply to those businesses that are registered as responsible vendors. If you're already a responsible vendor, you're already doing this, so this section doesn't apply to you. I would ask you to look at what we have recommended previously as omitting 82074. We now have looked at this again, and we will ask you today to consider leaving this in. Now, the reason we had previously recommended to take out the training for the applicant is because we already had a training section. But here's what we noticed, that the training section that we're adding, we just spoke about, was for employees. And this is a training for applicants. The applicant himself or herself needs to be trained. So we'll ask you, and probably needs a motion from someone on the council, to leave in 82074. Then 82094 and 82095 have to do with special occasion permits. Now, right now in the code, we have one section on special occasion permits, and we're asking you to divvy that up and make one for 501c3 registered nonprofits, and another one for everybody else. So the 82094 is the one that's for everybody else other than a registered 501c3. So the only change that we're asking you to make to 82094 regards events that happen on city property. Now, what we were seeing was that there were occasions when people would rent a facility like the Civic Center or the fairgrounds or something, and they would have an event and give away beer, but yet they weren't coming to get a permit for that. So this requires, that will stop that process. Anybody who's going to sell or give away beer on city property has to get a permit for that. Then our whole new section is 82095. Now, this is, we discussed it at Agenda Review the other night, and Russ McKelvey has been very gracious to help the Code Committee address this issue, but we still didn't have it right, and he brought up some issues. So yesterday, Councilman McKelvey and I worked on an amendment to the word. I'm giving you all a copy of that this morning. Now, what this is saying is that a special occasion permit for a 501c3 organization. The problem was that they were having to come every time they had a party and pay a $250 fee and get their background checked and all of that sort of thing every single time. So the beer board was seeing them numerous times a year. Under this revised version, if someone makes a motion to revise it, the 501c3 would come at the beginning of the year for their first event. They would pay a $50 fee for a license. They would get their background checked at that time, and then any other time they wanted to have a party during that same year, that same calendar year, all they would have to do is to come back and certify to the board that they've got their security and their insurance and all of that in place, and then they would receive their license. But it takes it from having to pay several $250 fees a year to just paying one $50 fee a year. Okay, the next section is 8215-1, and again, we're trying to beef up our beer code. It is the responsibility of each permittee to prevent the sale of beer and to prevent violations. We are told that when people violate, they come to the board and they say, "We're sorry, we just didn't know." Well, this particular provision makes it their responsibility to know. Now, in 216, there are several changes that we're recommending. Now, this has to do with revocations and suspensions of beer licenses. And you'll notice that some of these say may and some of them say shall. Okay, so first, 216(1)B, the board may revoke or suspend when a permittee knowingly permits or negligently fails to prevent the trafficking of alcoholic beverages. Okay, so and the big hammer here is if they do get a revocation for this, they cannot get another permit for 10 years. And this is for the trafficking of alcohol. 216(1)C, this is a shall. No new permit shall be issued for up to 10 years if a person has been convicted of a crime involving beer. 216(1)D, another shall revoke the permit of one who operates in a disorderly manner. Now, we discussed this at Agenda Review with the police department, and they helped us with this provision as well. This is a disorderly conduct that chronically happens, okay, or it's a severe breach of the peace. Then the beer board has an additional hammer to remove their permit. 216(1)E, may revoke or suspend any permit when they're delinquent in paying their fees or privilege taxes. Then on to 221, this is a change, just one minor change in the hours of the business can sell beer. It's until 3 a.m. In the morning that a business can sell beer, but it's different on Sunday mornings. On Sunday, you can't sell beer again until noon, as the way the code reads now. The recommendation from the Code Committee is to make that 10 a.m. in the event of brunches that different restaurants may have. 8222, this is to make appropriate lighting, appropriate seating capacity, appropriate entrances and exits required at every place that sells beer. Now, 8223 was another problem the beer board brought to us, and this was if a business just changes its name, no ownership change, no location change, just a name change for some reason or another. They used to have to come through the beer board, pay a new fee, go through the whole process of vetting once again. Other cities, and we thought this was a good idea, other cities just have them to go to the business tax office, make their application, pay their fee, and then the new permit can be issued there without the vetting from the beer board. And those are the changes to the beer code.
All right, any questions from council?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address the 82095 section that we have the revision of this morning. The reason for doing that, I think it's absolutely fair that we award 501c3s, allow them the annual license at a reduced rate. That's one way we can help those organizations with their annual fundraisers, which the permit usually pertains to. But the reason for the revision is, as it was originally proposed, we did not allow the beer board an opportunity to check the individual events after the fact. And while we know many of the repeat fundraisers and organizations that have these events year after year after year, we don't know what comes in the future. So just for the sake of beer board being allowed to do what it's charged with doing, and that's vetting each of these special events, just to make sure that they're appropriate, they have planned security and professional vendors handling the sell, store, and serve. I worked with Ms. Luna to come up with some revised language so that we can check those events and not just give them the license and forget about them until the next year when they come back to see us. So that being said, I would like to make a motion to amend 82095 with the language provided by Ms. Luna this morning.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Question, I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this. And would it be, could a motion be made to accept the changes to section 8 with the additional changes in 82095 and 82074?
I think you could do that. I think you could do it either way. You could either,
Instead of making 3 motions, we make 1 motion to accept the changes that were proposed, the additional amendments made in 2074, 2095.
that should work. And I think there's going to be another
Yeah, I was
a
gonna.
motion as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I
2074.
think the councilman's motion could go ahead and go for vote, on the amendment. I could make a motion on another amendment, and then we could vote on the
Or
final.
your amendment will be 2074?
Yeah.
Or the councilman could change his motion to include 2074, 2095 as well.
2074.
Just to keep-
2074 was the one that needed
Right,
to
so we're not
stay
doing
in
3
regarding the
different
training of
things,
the applicant.
Okay, so with that being said, I would like to rescind the motion for the amendment and then provide a new motion to amend items 82095, 2074, and 2095 and 2074 as recommended.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. This is an item on first reading, so I'll open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to can be recognized at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any further discussion from council? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
All right, item 4 is changes to Title 10, Chapter 3, Animal Control, Vicious Dogs.
Voted amendments and not the,
Yeah, I thought we voted to accept it with the amendments. Did I not-
I didn't word that correctly then.
Okay, let's go back. We're not there yet, so I misunderstood his motion. His motion was to add the amendments. Now, we have the changes to Title 8, Chapter 2, as amended in the previous motion to include the amendments from today. Is there a motion to accept the?
Well, you do that again, because I didn't catch all of
Yeah,
that.
so the first motion that was voted on, I misunderstood his motion. His motion was to include the amendments on 2074 and 2095. And so from the original proposal, and so now we have those 2 sections amended from the original proposal in Title 8. And so now we're voting on Title 8 as amended with those 2 additions.
So moved.
Motion. Second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Let me ask you about, Attorney Luna, 8216, the, B. Beer board may revoke or suspend any beer permit if a permittee who knowingly permits or negligently fails to permit the violations upon the premises upon the permittee concerning the traffic of alcoholic beverages. Now, when we say traffic, that means a lot to different people. What does trafficking of alcoholic beverages mean?
That means transporting it under the law. I think that under this, particularly the state law, there are alcohol trafficking laws, and when anyone violates any of those, they are charged here locally with having the knowledge and required to prevent the trafficking of it.
Okay, now if a permittee's employee does that, that inures back to the permittee.
It does now, yes.
And upon the first offense, the permittee is still charged with that and is liable for a 10-year abeyance before he or she could get a license again. Is that right?
It's revoke or suspend, and the term is may. Depending on the severity of the incident, it could be suspended just briefly. It could be suspended for a year, or it could be revoked
And the
forever.
bid board would make that determination?
Yes, depending on the facts presented to them. It gives them a lot of
I got you.
wiggle room in there.
Gotcha. Thank you. And another question I wanted to ask you, the part about the beer could not be sold between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. I'm just curious, what is that all about?
You know, I had the same question. We went to the police department, and they did not feel like it would be any difference in crime if it were changed to 2 a.m., you know, that beer stopped selling at 2 a.m. or beer stopped selling at 1 a.m. So we went with the recommendation of the police department on that one. But I did have the same question you did.
Because I'm wondering what difference does it make to stop selling beer at any time? But, you know, that's neither here nor there, but I just wondered that. Thanks.
Good question.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going, this is item on first reading, so we'll open this up for public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to can be recognized. Seeing none, close the public hearing. Any further discussion from council? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
All right. Now we go on to changes to Title 10, Chapter 3, Animal Control, Vicious Dogs.
The Animal Care Center brought us several problems that they were having regarding vicious dogs. They felt like it was their #1 problem and wanted us to, as the code committee, to address it and look at this section of the code, and we did. We found several sections that need to be changed. The primary one I want to address, I'll just go ahead and address it summarily so that I won't have to address it in each little section here, but the way the code reads now, the city has a hearing panel that is to make the decision regarding vicious dogs. Okay? That hearing panel, maybe 30 years ago, that hearing panel was set up. It was the county appointed a veterinarian, city appointed people. It was a joint city-county venture to declare dogs vicious. Since the inception of the environmental court, we have been using that city court to determine whether a dog is vicious or not. So we asked Whitney Hohen to look back, and she said, we haven't used a hearing panel in over 15 years. So we're making changes from a hearing panel to having city court make these determinations with regard to vicious dogs. So there are several changes in the definitions. First, one of the problems that seems to creep up is that someone gets cited and they say, this isn't my dog, you know, I don't own this dog. This is my neighbor's dog, it's just staying here, or it's my kid's dog and I'm keeping it. So we've got a definition of a keeper that we're adding in, just anybody that's got a custody of a dog. If it's with you, you're the keeper, okay, and you can be cited into city court. The second is a definition change in owner. This covers, we can't imagine any more broad definition of owner. If you have the dog, if you maintain the dog, if you feed the dog, if you shelter the dog, harbor it, if you live with someone who's under 18 and that young person is the owner of the dog, then you as the parent or guardian are the owner of the dog. So this way, we've got an owner to carry to court if we've got a vicious dog situation. We're also asking you to change the definition of what a vicious dog is. And we looked at several other cities across the state. And this really doesn't leave anything to the imagination or to discretion, really. If you look at it, if the dog has aggressively bitten, attacked, or inflicted injury on a human, severely injured or killed a human being, been used for fighting or any other aggressive activity, or aggressively and unprovoked while off of its owner's property attacked another animal or human. So if any of those incidents happen, the city court will declare it as a vicious dog. two more new definitions. One is what an unprovoked attack is, and I think that seems to be pretty, you know, like you would think that everybody would understand that, but when you get to court, it's nice to have a definition. So an unprovoked attack is when a dog attacks or bites a human who is conducting himself peacefully and lawfully and hasn't teased that dog. Another new definition is competent person, and this is going to come up in the ownership of the vicious dog. If they've already been declared vicious and they want to keep the dog, it's got to be a competent person, and here's the definition: over 18 and able to understand the responsibilities of owning such a dog. Okay, 10302 deals with how we're going to determine it, the actual process. Now it's going to be, instead of the hearing panel, they're going to come into court. And when they come into court, we are going to cite them, and the law enforcement officer, either a police officer or an animal control officer, if they've got probable cause, will cite them into court, the owner or the keeper, into court, and they will come into court, and the judge will hear the case, take all the evidence into consideration, and make that determination. So those are the changes to that section. We're also asking you to look at 10304. Within 10 days of having a dog declared vicious by the court must notify the owner in writing of the decision. That's if they don't show up to court. And tell the owner of the new restrictions on its ownership. Now, another problem Whitney Owen brought to us is when someone gets cited that they've got a vicious dog to come into court, they immediately give the dog away. So we're adding in a new section that has to do with no transfer of the vicious dog. Now, 10306, we're only making one slight change to it, but I wanted to bring to your attention what it says. If a resident has had a dog that's been declared vicious by the court, and they want to keep that dog, there are some stringent requirements for keeping it. One, you have to have $100,000 of insurance. You've got to keep it in an enclosed pen, and it's specially enclosed pen. You've got to put a sign up. You've got to have a leash and a muzzle on the dog if you take it out anywhere. So that's a pretty high standard. The only thing we're asking to be added to that is that the person be a competent person who's allowed to keep a vicious dog. Then in 313, again, we've already addressed the transfer in another section, so we're asking you to omit this. And then finally, in 314, regarding the penalty, it was a little ambiguous as to what the court could do if someone were cited into court for this. And we're asking this to be made a little less ambiguous. And this is in line with what other cities our size and bigger are doing. And it's the $50 a day penalty for having a vicious dog or having a violation of this section. And those are the changes. Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Counsel.
Well, I have
Okay.
2 dogs could be considered vicious because they bit it in the body because of the size they are. But as far as anyone on my property, as far as wanting to break in my house and my dog decided to do what he's supposed to do and talk to protect, would he be considered vicious if he is doing his job?
If you look at that definition, two things I want to address to your question. And the first thing, has he been declared vicious by the court?
Okay.
Okay.
No, he hasn't. I'm just saying, just in case.
In the event that he does do one of those things, if you look at the definition of a vicious dog, which was on the very first page, if they are off of your property
Okay.
and attack someone, and it's aggressive and unprovoked, then they can be declared a vicious dog. But I don't think there's anything in there other than, if you'll look at this definition, aggressively bitten, attacked, or has otherwise inflicted injury on a human being. So if someone comes to visit you, under this definition, it would be declared a vicious dog. Now, if it was a robbery or something, if that's what you're addressing.
Yeah, more so if, my property, if someone is coming on my property unannounced, or as far as to do, because mine stays in the house. If anybody break in, he's gonna do what he's or she's supposed to do as far as you don't belong here.
Well, according to the definition that is here, if they injured that person, now, I believe the court could take that into consideration if it was The same as if you used a weapon against someone who broke onto your property. But this does cover, you know, what it's meant to cover is if someone comes to your property to visit, maybe a child,
Yeah.
and they're there for a family event, and your dog, you know, injures them, aggressively bites them, then it does cover that.
Wouldn't the provocation be entering the home illegally?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think that changes the whole situation, and the court could, you know, certainly address that.
Thank you.
Now, if a dog attacks someone, you know, off premises, you know, chases someone, all that kind of stuff, and the animal control officer has probable cause to believe that the dog is vicious and files what he or she is supposed to file, during the time that it takes for the court to decide whether or not that dog is vicious, where is the dog? Who keeps the dog?
There's an impoundment section in our code that allows them in that certain situation to impound the dog pending the hearing.
Okay, all right, that's it. Thank you.
All right, any additional questions? This is an item on first reading, so I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to, you can come up and have a seat and state your name and
My name is L.F. Wynn. I'm 78 years old, and I have a problem with dogs that you might call vicious. Pit bulls, Doberman pinschers, Rottweilers. If I own a dog and it's in my house, that's one thing. But when that dog leaves out of the house, I think they should have a muzzle on. Because too many times you hear of dogs attacking people. I had a dog about that tall, his head as big as his body, tried to attack me 3 times in one day. And I told the owner that he should put a muzzle on the thing. And I'm telling you, if you'll allow me to say so, what's wrong with putting a muzzle on the dog when it goes out of the house? Because when they attack somebody, it's too late to say, I'm sorry, oops, I'm sorry. And, I just think that they should have a muzzle on them. Then they can't harm people. You know, that's my personal opinion. And it's backed up by the fact that I hear of dogs attacking people, harming them, and then the owner says, well, it wasn't my dog. So if it doesn't have a muzzle, have animal control pick the thing up and let it be known to the owners that the dog will be picked up if it doesn't have a muzzle on it outside of the house. Doesn't matter if it's in a yard because dogs jump fences. That's all I have to say on that.
That would only apply to just dogs who are inside the house dogs, is what you were talking about, only them?
Well, if you have a pit bull or Doberman pinscher, Rottweiler, German Shepherds are not so bad at attacking people. But they're dogs that systematically seems like they want to attack people from time when they're out of the sight of their owners. When they leave out of the house, put a muzzle on them. And then you don't have to worry about that.
You talking about every dog that leaves out of the house or just certain breeds of dogs?
Certain breeds that are determined to be vicious. Certain breeds that are known to attack people. You know, and you have paperwork that'll show you which ones, collies are not known for attacking people. German Shepherds are not necessarily known for attacking people. But there's some that are known for attacking people, and when they leave out of the house, they should have a muzzle on. You got a yard with a fence, dogs jump fences, and they do attack people. And like I say, this little dog, no taller than that, head as big as his body, tried to attack me 3 times in one day. And
So going further with what you're saying, even if you have a dog that's regularly stays outside within a fenced area, because you say that some dogs jump the fence, those dogs should have muzzles too?
yes, sir. If they're considered the type of dog that could be vicious, put a muzzle on it. What's the problem with
Even
that?
if they're in their own yard with a fence?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Teresa?
Yes.
I think you have to also address the needs of the dog, the shelter, the water, the food. If a dog lives outside and is muzzled most of the day, he wouldn't have the ability to eat or have water. So
Right, we've got that in the other section of our code in Chapter 1, Title 10, Chapter 1. I think being in the own yard would present a big problem. Another thing about muzzles that we've addressed is that a muzzle is not necessarily a good thing for a dog, and you have to weigh the good with the bad. When do you have to take that extra step to require a muzzle? And should every breed be required to have a muzzle if they're out walking in the neighborhood on a leash with their owner? Because it's not a great thing to have a muzzle on a dog. So we looked at other cities, we discussed this gentleman's concern, and I would say this, if residents would, under this new code, call the Animal Control Center or the police department if a dog has been aggressive toward them, and that owner gets a citation to come into court, we can address it on the first time. Most probably, these dogs have, they're, repeat offenders, if you will. And so if citizens would, under the new code, address it the first time, we can take care of it. And then those requirements go into place that this gentleman is requesting.
So if you don't mind, where do you stay, if you don't mind me asking? What area do you live in?
I live 920 Prospect. 920 Prospect Street. But when it comes to feeding the dog with a muzzle on it, take the muzzle off when you feed him, give him water, put it right back on him. Because I'm talking about safety. I'm a Vietnam veteran. In Vietnam,
I agree with you, but then again, like you said, I wouldn't be comfortable with my dog having a muzzle on all the time, even when I'm walking him, because still, there's just so much going on, and my dogs love freedom as long as he's not being aggressive. But then again, I still look at my dog as protection even when I'm walking.
if you're walking with it with a chain on him, you don't need a muzzle. But your dog is outside, you're inside, he decides to jump the fence and attack somebody. I'm just saying safety.
Oh, I can understand that, but that's when training come in place. But I just don't feel like a muzzle is something that we should do at all time on the dog.
If I may address this, there's one section of the code that we're not changing. That is, if you've got a vicious dog, they have to be in an enclosed space, which includes a roof over the enclosure, so they can't jump the fence. They can't just be loose in a fenced-in area. They've got to be in a small fenced enclosure with a top on it.
I agree with that.
And I encourage you to at least call someone, and next time that dog do that, please call someone, the police come out to address that issue. And then we can probably get it in before the judge and make sure that person is, dogs are gonna have a buzzer if he's doing that.
Yes, sir.
Well, you have the trouble of determining which specific breeds would need the muzzle, and then what do you do about dogs that don't have a defined breed? So
Well,
it's too broad a brush.
But you already know that certain dogs, you know that certain dogs are known to be aggressive. You know that certain dogs are known to attack people when their owners are not around. So I like dogs, but I don't see a problem with putting a muzzle on a dog when it's not in the house. Take it off when you feed him. Take it off when you give him water, but
This issue is, we're unable to decide this issue today, Mr. Winslow. I think it's something our codes committee can go back and look at, and then they can make a recommendation further in the codes committee.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wynn.
I would say that other cities, we're not the first city to go down this road with vicious dogs. And other cities that have addressed it, there are some legal issues with determining breed by breed, making restrictions on breed by breed. The code committee feels like this is the strongest, legally strongest type of ordinance that we can bring to you under state law.
So we're still in the public hearing section. So anyone else wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to be recognized? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and we have a motion for the changes to Title 10, Chapter 3.
So moved.
You have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion from council meeting? All right, council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
All right, thank you, Ms. Luna. Item 5 is proposed budget amendment for Jackson-Madison County Library in the amount of $20,000.
As the mayor mentioned, this request for this budget amendment comes from the library. They have an urgent situation with the elevator, and they're requesting funding from the city and the county. So the county is approving $10,000. The city's approving, with your approval, $20,000. The joint funding agreement, since we're responsible for the building, that's the reason the city is 2/3 of the request and the county's 1/3. So this would come from fund balance.
So moved. Second. There's a motion and a second. This is an item on.
Move to approve.
All right, you have a motion and a second already. This is item on first reading. We'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to can be recognized at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any further discussion from council? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
All right. Item 6, proposed budget amendment from Capital Outlay Fund for Recreation and Parks in the amount of $28,000.
These are budgeted funds in the capital outlay fund that are left over from a project that was budgeted, and Parks and Rec Department sees a need to upgrade safety ground cover for fall safety at several of our parks, and they want to move this money to accomplish that. So.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion is second. This is an item on first reading, so we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to can be recognized at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from council? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8 to 1 abstain.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, that was me and I didn't mean to abstain.
Motion passed 9-0.
All right. We move on to second reading. Item 1 is proposed budget amendment, JPD recoverable damages, amount of $37,924.
So move.
Second.
A motion is second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
Item 2 is proposed budget amendment, solid waste recycle partnership grant, amount of $50,640.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
Item 3 is proposed budget amendment, JPD violent crimes intervention grant, the amount of $783,302.
So move.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Refresh my memory on that, please.
I gotta refresh my memory on that, council. Captain Jones, do you have the information on that grant?
We've expanded
Yeah, I
the
can't.
shots, the shot
I think
spot.
shot spotter was one of them. Yeah.
That was the grant, Governor Lee issued funds to municipalities, and part of these funds will be using to expand shot spotter coverage and purchase equipment for the department.
I remember now. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
Item 4 is proposed budget amendment, JTA operating expense subsidy, amount of $530,943.
So moved.
Second.
A motion is second. Any further discussion?
Mr.
Question.
Arnold, go ahead.
But
Have we gotten an updated financial outlook over the last month from JTA?
I believe they've had a board meeting since that time, and that board packet was distributed to certain members, so.
Okay, if we as the council could start getting those,
Sure, we can,
I think we're supposed to get those monthly.
okay. Yeah, we can do that. So.
and has there been any changes to this updated
Not-
whatsoever? That we-
Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
so.
Nothing positive.
All right, any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-2. 2 abstain, I'm sorry.
No, that's
7 to 2 abstain.
Are we good? Okay. Item 5 is changes to Title 4, Chapter 1, City Pension System. Before we get a motion on this, because of the communication piece to our retirees, we moved this public hearing to second reading. So I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to the changes to the city pension system can be recognized at this time. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion from council? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
Item 6 is changes to Title 10, Chapter 1, Animal Control in general.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
Item 7, changes to Title 10, Chapter 2, Animal Control, Livestock, and Other Farm Animals.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
And item 8, changes to Title 15, Chapters 1 through 13, Motor Vehicles, Traffic, and Parking.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, yes, I need some refreshment on that as well.
It was in your packet, Councilman.
I still need some refreshment on it. What, just 90 seconds?
90 seconds.
It's a
Not sure I
whole
can do
lot.
it in 90 seconds.
It's a whole lot.
It's a whole lot. What we did was work with the police department on chapter 15. Some of the main things were, we had that section about traffic cameras, and the city is not using traffic cams anymore, and the police chief tells us we're not planning to in the future, so it's removing that. Some of them are simple, like you're required to have a bell on your bicycle. You know, we're removing that.
Is there anything in there about heavy trucks, tractor trailers coming through residential neighborhoods?
There's nothing in our code that addresses that, but, and there's nothing in our changes that address that either. We certainly would look at it if you'd like us to.
All right, thank you.
We can address that for resolution on the case.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
All right, move on to new business. Item 1 is consideration of a resolution to approve the Community Development Annual Action Plan. We have LaTanya and special guest appearance by Mr. Mark Reed as well.
Good morning. Good morning. Again, I'm LaTanya Faison. This is Mr. Mark Reed with the Jackson Housing Authority. We administer the Community Development Block Grant and Home Grant funds from HUD. For these funds, for us to receive these funds each year, we must submit to HUD by May 15th an annual action plan and budget of our proposed activities. We hold a 30-day public review period. We hold a public meeting. We also present the plan to the Jackson Housing Authority's Board of Commissioners for their recommendation of approval to you all. Our action plan goals are parallel to our 5-year consolidated plan goals, which are improve quantity and quality of affordable housing, provide economic opportunities, provide suitable living environments, and expand the capacity of homeless providers. This year, or for the upcoming year, we received a slight increase in both the CDBG and home funds of about 9%. So we will receive in CDBG $603,996. In home funds, we'll receive $412,439. On the CDBG funds, we primarily use those funds for public service activities to fund nonprofit agencies such as West Tennessee Legal Services, Boys and Girls Club, RIFA, the FEC, and JCIL. We also, 40% of our CDBG funds goes to the repayment of the Section 108 loan. That's $243,000 of the $603,000 that we receive. The remaining funds are used for housing repair activities. On the home funds, they are strictly for housing activities, and so we will allocate $280,000 of those monies to our community housing development organizations. That's Jonah Affordable Housing, Habitat for Humanity, and Southwest CDC to do acquisition, rehab, and new construction of rental or home buyer housing. The remaining will go to down payment assistance and target housing rehabilitation for homeowners. You have a copy of the budget and the plan, or summary of the plan. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, any questions from council?
I'm curious about the public hearing. Does anybody ever show up at those public hearings?
Sometimes.
What about this time? Anybody show up?
It was just a couple of people.
Okay.
Yeah, when we had the community needs hearing, we had quite a few people. We had a lot of people show up to that one, but the actual presentation of the action plan, we did not have that many.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions from council? All right, is there a motion to approve the
I so move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed, 8 to 1 abstain.
All right. Thank you.
He just went to the bathroom.
Item 2 is consideration of professional services contract for Commerce and Griffith Street sidewalk improvements, Phase 1.
All right, so you've heard me say this before, but a plan is only as good as its implementation. So once we adopted the bike and ped and greenways plan, the mayor committed $1 million in the budget to, and you approved it to fund sidewalk improvements, bike lanes, greenways. And at the back of that plan is a priority list. And so this project is one of those priorities that was a part of the plan. And what this will do is, this was to provide sidewalks from the subdivision that's south of Chester, which is kind of the Washington Douglas area, to give them a path to Chester. And so originally the project was to go up Commerce Street all the way, but there was some grade problems with Commerce as you got closer to Chester, and there was also a lot of industrial uses on that end of it. That made it sort of unsafe to carry people that direction. So this project, what you see here is the contract to design the improvements, which will then be bid out and constructed. But now we're using a path that takes up Commerce until you get to the railroad track. Once you pass the railroad track, then it goes up Griffin Street to East Chester, and that's a better path. It does not include the railroad crossing. Railroad crossings take a long time to get approval, and that will be handled at a later date if approved by the railroads. So this is just, again, this is not the construction, this is the design work for the construction, and then we will take that to bid.
Because these dollars are, we'll discuss some sidewalk improvements later on. These dollars are actually from the American Rescue Plan that were carved out for these improvements. So just to let you know where the money's coming from. Any questions from council?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Did you do a study to see the difference in people walking on Griffin Street versus Peabody Street? Was there a study done to see where to put the sidewalk besides Commerce Street?
There was not, to my knowledge, but again, we are looking at the design of it now. I can check with our consultant and see if that information was gathered. But this project was already sort of determined, as the mayor said, through the ARP funds. So we just tried to find a path that was cost effective, because the other path was really, really expensive and was more money than was available for that project.
No way you can find any extra money for the sidewalk to go on Commerce Street. It's the most walked street in District 2 outside of East Chester. Not only do the people use Commerce Street to walk to the grocery store, they also walk to work, walk to school, and I can't see anybody walking down Griffin Street. I've never seen anybody walk
Well,
on
just to
Griffin Street.
explain, the sidewalk will be on Commerce Street until you get to the railroad. And then once you pass the railroad, then it will turn to the left and go up Griffin Street for the final portion of it to get you to East Chester. The section of Commerce Street from the railroad to Chester had a big drop off, and there was no way to build the sidewalk and make it work in that section. So we are building it up Commerce until we get to the railroad track, and then it will shift over to Griffin for the final portion to Chester.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. But I think that she's saying that's the most traffic there is going down. I understand the cost of it, but I think we need to continue to take a look at it, because we did have a young lady that get hit walking up and down Commerce, so hopefully they'll deter and go to Griffin Street. But if we could clean that Commerce quarter up on that side where we could put the sidewalks there.
Our stormwater has it on their maintenance list.
Okay, I think that would make it, but I think, like I said, it is, Commerce is, and hopefully Griffin Street will give them another option instead of walking up Commerce. So thanks for the opportunity. I'd like to make a motion.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion from council?
One other question. I believe Mr. Turner brought this up at the agenda review meeting. Did we get the certificate of owner's attorney on this one that we have with the other contracts?
No, we haven't gotten that. We signed that and haven't gotten it over to you. I'm sorry, I had to go back. I meant to check with Zach to get that sent over. We've all signed it, just didn't get transferred from Stan's in the contract over to what we signed.
Okay,
We'll get that sent over.
thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
Thank you.
All right, item 3 is consideration of a resolution to approve the crossings at Exum Place, Tax Increment Finance District Economic Development Plan.
So moved.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions?
Just a statement, I'll be abstaining from this vote. We have some property across the street
Okay.
from where this is proposed.
All right, any further discussion from council? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-1 abstain.
Item 4 is consideration of a resolution to withdraw and dissolve Exit 85 TIF.
So moved.
You have a motion? Is there, have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
I'll be abstaining from this vote because we have property within this current district area.
Okay.
And just to clarify, I think we discussed this Thursday. If we didn't do anything right now, it would just run its course.
Run its course for 5 more years.
5 more years. Okay, and there's not, and that has to go back to the general fund.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, any additional question from council?
One question just about the opportunities that we have for affordable or attainable housing, and an opportunity with the dissolving of this fund to seed a potential housing trust fund. I'd just like that to be at the front of the council's minds as we move into the next budget season with this potentially coming back to the general
I think
fund.
that's a great idea, Councilman. And we're working on the dollar amount too of what's on our crude and then what's in the TIF fund, so we'll have that report to you as well. All right, any further discussion from council? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-1 abstain.
All right, item 5 is consideration of the contract with First Horizon Bank for banking services.
So moved.
You have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion from council? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
All right, item 6, consideration of a contract with Galls LLC for JPT's leather gear.
So moved.
Motion? Second? Is there a second?
Cisco.
Oh, Cisco second, okay. Any further discussion?
Yes, I do. Now, what is that about?
So that is for leather gear accessories for the JPD department. And in your packet, you'll see like the itemized items they use.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
got you. I got, yeah.
All right, any further discussion from council? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-1 abstain. What's that? Motion passed 9-0.
Thank you, council.
Item 7 is consideration of a contract with MSB Construction for sidewalks.
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
Item 8 is consideration of a contract with TLM for Jackson TA Project Phase 1 on the Airways project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
Item 9 is consideration of a contract with TLM for Jackson TA Phase 2 Airways project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
All right, item 10, consideration Sunshine invoices less than 10,000. Item 11 is consideration of invoices over 10,000.
Did we skip one?
No, this is Sunshine to item 10.
Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Oh, no, we removed that. It
Oh,
was
I'm
an
sorry.
email that was sent out.
I missed that. Thank you.
Item 11, consideration of invoices over 10,000.
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Council, please vote.
Motion passed 9-0.
No further business coming before the council. Meeting is adjourned.